Before somebody says it, I know already, rip mats. So if the current state of material gathering in the game, I do not condone using this in an actual competitive environment. So the reason why I decided to learn this technique and almost perfect it basically was because I was honestly just starting to get bored of the game and I just wanted to occupy my time with something that I could challenge myself with. So to anybody that wants to learn this technique, you first off need to perfect the triple layer technique and also the quad layer ramp rush technique. Both are very essential to nailing the 6-layer ramp rush. So if you already have these techniques perfected, go to this timestamp. You do not need to listen to this part of the video. So there are a few ways to go about perfecting the triple layer technique. The way I do it is, in my mind, the easiest. There's other tutorials on YouTube which suggest to do it this other way, which may make it a little bit more difficult for doing the 6-layer technique. So there's two ways. So the first way is you can do a ramp, a floor, a ramp, a wall, and then go back to your ramp. So basically, you gotta swap between your building slots 4 times, and to do that during the triple layer or for the 6-layer technique is too much, to be honest with you. So if you want to give the 6-layer ramp rush a try, I would highly suggest making the conversion to the 3 swap technique on the triple layer ramp rush. It's gonna make your life a lot easier when it comes to perfecting the 6-layer technique, because you're gonna be hitting a lot more of your placements down than you would of the 4 swaps technique. So the main way that the 3 swap differs from the 4 swap is you don't have to switch back to your ramp like every single time. It's really nice not having to do that, because that allows you to not worry about a wall placing in front of you sometimes. I understand why people like the 4 swap technique, because you can do something like this, you can run right through it, but you can also do it on 3 swap. So I don't know, if you can't do it on a 3 swap, then I guess you should use a 4 swap if you just want to run through it. But I like the 3 swap because I like to jump through it and I like to run through it also, so whatever works for you. In order to perfect your 6-layer technique, you have to be able to run jump through your ramp rush, so get used to that when you can. Something else I like to do to kind of perfect the triple layer technique is I like to practice it in sort of like a build battle scenario. So instead of just pushing somebody in a straight line, you're kind of angling yourself at different angles or just using it in a different way, which is always a good thing to do if you really want to perfect it. Another little trick I worked on before approaching the 6-layer technique was I did this little jerky motion with like my 3-layer technique. So basically, it's good to not be used to going in a straight line, because if you want to perfect the 6-layer technique, you definitely gotta not be used to just doing the usual with your ramp rush technique. So once you have the triple layer technique down, it's time to move on to the quad layer technique. If you don't know what that is, it's a ramp rush that has 2 ramps, 2 floors, and 2 walls. So there are a few ways to go about this technique. The most common one is the left to right motion exaggerated. I'm not a fan of it because I find it to be very inconsistent at times. So the way I go about doing this technique is I do a boomerang motion with my cursor. That's the way I like to think of it. It kind of represents like a boomerang going back and forth. So the reason why I like this boomerang compared to the exaggerated right and left motion is because I feel like I'm in control when I'm placing down my building materials. So the way I go about this boomerang technique is I do my 2 ramps on the top, 2 floors, and then 2 walls. So as you can see, each part of the motion is basically designated for a certain piece of the ramp. So it's not like I'm placing stuff blindly. Like each part of the cursor motion has its own purpose. Like it's going to be placing like a certain piece at that certain time. So assuming you master the triple and the quad layer technique, it's time to move on to the 6-layer technique. So there are 2 ways to go about this technique. There's this way with this sort of ramp, floor, wall, ramp placement, and then there's this way, which is basically the opposite of the directions you're placing your materials in. So the problem of doing it this way is I personally tend to like to center my character between the 2 ramps, and that's good and all, but the thing that you need to center is your cursor, that little arrow icon, and not doing that is going to happen to make something like this happen. So you see, like, I missed all my bottom ramps on my 6-layer technique, which is what you don't want. So something I want to cover before I go into the 6-layer technique specifically is something I call blind building. And basically what this is a jerking motion, and then you're swapping through your building slots, and you're kind of hoping that it's going to place, but it doesn't place because there's too much to place for the 6-layer technique because it doesn't work like that. So you really gotta kind of focus down and perfect the directions that you're actually placing your building slots in. So a good way to go about perfecting the switching your building slots while changing your cursor is I like to do 2 ramps and then 2 floors and then 2 walls. Just like swap between what comes after it in a fast motion instead of just diving into it all 4 at a time. So once you get used to all 4 at a time, start jumping through it. It's going to help you out a lot. So this is what I found what happens when you don't jump through your 6-layer technique. You basically just phase through your ramps that you're walking on. So this is not a full speed 6-layer ramp rush technique. When I'm landing, sometimes I'm walking because I'm trying to slow myself down so I'm not feeling overwhelmed by the 6-layer technique. When going through your 6-layer rushes, don't feel constrained to this because stuff happens when you're kind of going through it. So just do what feels good for you. This is what felt good for me. I hope it helps. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe. This is basically what I'm trying to get out this week or by this weekend. This is just another sort of montage of the Super Ramp Rush. This time it has floors on it. Be sure to join my Discord and also follow me on Twitter and Instagram if you have that. Send me clips of you guys trying to do the 6-layer ramp rush. I found it really difficult, and it does take time to perfect, but it's not impossible. So let me see how you guys are progressing. Anyways, peace out.